Welcome to Get Wed,
a podcast to plan your wedding by.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Kerrie.
And we're both here as professional photographers
and brides-to-be to help you plan your big day.
Each week we'll discuss a topic that you'll encounter along your wedding planning journey.
And with the help of fellow industry experts, we'll navigate this crazy wedding world
together.
Hello and welcome back to Get Wed and the very last episode of season 4. It is Kerrie here and I hope you've had an amazing Christmas and that you're enjoying some well-deserved time with your nearest and dearest. Now it's Boxing Day today, so I imagine that we're not going to have too many people listening, but I wanted to still get this episode out over the Christmas period because I imagine that we've gained a few new listeners for this episode. Hands up if that's you. And that's because statistically the festive period is when the largest majority of engagements take place. So just let me say a huge congratulations to all of those of you who became a fiancé this Christmas. As a fellow Christmas Day engagee, I can relate to the excitement and the joy of telling your family as you see them all over the next few days. It really did feel like a never-ending party when we got engaged back in 2015. So really make sure you take some time to just revel in that excitement and for the brides to be among you, enjoy gazing at your shiny new rings. It was just such an exciting time of the year to be getting engaged because you just see so many people over this festive period now. So I really hope that you're enjoying yourselves and popping the champagne wherever you go and everyone's just incredibly happy for you. And because I imagine we're going to get a few new listeners this week, I thought it'd be a really great opportunity for me to reintroduce the podcast to you and let you know what to expect from it if you've not listened before, and also to have a look back over the past 48 episodes so that you can, so if you are new, you can kind of hit the ground running with your wedding plans. And also if you have been listening for a while but haven't quite listened to everything, I thought it'd be good to be sharing with you where some of our kind of most popular episodes, and also give you some advice on where you should be getting started if you're just at the very start of your wedding planning, because it is hugely overwhelming to plan a wedding. And as excited as you are right now at the beginning of it, I bet in a few weeks' time you're just going to be wondering what the hell you need to do. So don't worry, we've got your back here at Get Wed. We've been through it all and we are happy and willing to share all of our advice and information with you. So make sure you subscribe and listen along and we'll make wedding planning much easier for you, don't worry. Before I get started, I have some really, really big news for long-time listeners of the show. Katie, my lovely co-host, as you know, is currently on her maternity leave. And just over 2 weeks ago now, she and Jack welcomed baby George into the world. I know lots of you will be over the moon for her. So if you hop into our Get Wed Facebook group, which you can find via our website, which is getwedpodcast.co.uk, find the navigation link at the top of the page that says FB group, and hop in there and join. I'm going to start a thread in there for you to share your excitement, send your well wishes and to congratulate her. And I'm very much looking forward to meeting George after Christmas because I'm going to pop over there and take some photos for them. So let's get started with this week's episode. What is Get Wed all about? So if you've never listened to the show before, Get Wed came about when Katie and I both got engaged back in 2015 now. We're meeting up all the time to talk about weddings, or we were Skyping all the time talking about weddings, and it just occurred to me one day that I reckon it would be really interesting to listen into our conversations. And I'd been listening to a few podcasts and then suddenly, I don't know where the idea came from, but it just popped into my head and I thought this would make a brilliant podcast. So I asked Katie whether she'd be interested and she was on board with the idea, so we just went with it. When we started the podcast, we were both obviously planning our weddings. So if you go right back to the start and listen in order, you will hear our wedding plans from start to finish. We're both now married. Katie got married last year and I got married this year. So the podcast follows our planning from the very beginning right through and past wedding days, and we tell you the stories of our wedding days as well. Season 1 is a little bit different to where we are now in season 4. Our episodes used to be an hour long, and we found that after surveying our audience, actually an hour long was a little bit too much for people and they kind of lost interest towards the end. So we shortened our episodes to half an hour, which we found is much better for those of you who are listening to us on a commute. So if you're listening to us on your way home or to work, half an hour is a kind of much more digestible episode for you. And also you'll notice that in our first season, our sound issues were all over the place, and even in our second season, really. And it's just because we are literally bootstrapping the podcast. We are not professional podcasters whatsoever. We're pretty much learning this as we go, so bear with us. We promise you that the content in our episodes is actually really useful and helpful, and is going to be really beneficial to those of you planning a wedding, but our sound issues were there in the beginning. We also used to edit our podcast so much more in the first season, so you'll notice that there was literally no ums and ahs, like I'm umming now, as you see. But we kind of took all those out and made it a really kind of polished edit, which took us forever. And alongside with being wedding photographers, we found it really, really difficult to actually keep on top of our workload. And it kind of brought our enthusiasm for the podcast down. So in season 2, we made it much more candid. We keep all the ums and ahs in, and the awkward pauses and the laughter and the dogs barking and things. And we have actually decided that that's the way we prefer to do it. It makes us a bit more real, a bit more human, and we obviously get the giggles quite a lot when we are working together. In the most recent season 4, it's just been me on my own for most of the episodes, and then I've had guests on for some episodes, and that's because Katie's been away on her maternity leave. So it's a little bit different this season to the other seasons, but I hope that if you do go back and listen in order and hear our wedding plans, then you'll really enjoy hearing from Katie as well. And hopefully she'll be back soon after she's had some time to spend with her little boy. I keep umming now. Now that I've kind of made the point about how we used to edit out all the ums and ahs, now I can't stop saying Please forgive me. Oh God, there we go again. Anyway, let me just get over this issue. You can also find out more about us and get more involved with the podcast by joining our Facebook group, which you can find by searching on Facebook as Get Wed Podcast. We also have a mailing list, so every week we email out the new episode when it's ready to go live. So if you go to our website, which is getwedpodcast.co.uk, you'll find a link down the page that says sign up here to make sure you never miss out on an episode. Pop your email in there, and then you'll get an email weekly when the new episodes go live. We're also thinking about using our mail list a bit more in the future, perhaps to give you some special offers, and just to share some just general wedding planning tips and stuff as well in between when our seasons go live. We're also on Instagram at Get Wed Podcast, and if you are listening to the podcast, why not subscribe to us? You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or any kind of podcast app that you're using. I personally use Podbean, and that's a good way for you to kind of keep on top of the podcast and listen to us on the go. And lastly, you can watch us on YouTube. So if you are more of a visual learner or just want to see our faces as you're podcasting, you can find us on YouTube by searching for Get Wed Podcast. So that we are everywhere for you. So please come and find us and listen and join us.
I thought now would also be a really great time for me to share with you some of our most popular episodes since we started the podcast. So as I mentioned, we started the podcast back in 2016, so just after, it was probably January time that we started. And also, before I go into that, now, as I mentioned, Katie and I are both wedding photographers, so we tend to do two seasons a year of 12 episodes long. So you'll get a season at the beginning of the year and a season at the end of the year, but we keep the summer free because that's when we are busiest with our weddings. So we just can't quite manage to shoot weddings and keep on top of the podcast. So we do batch recording of 12 episodes at the beginning and 12 at the end. So you'll be getting 24 episodes from us a year, which should give you plenty to listen to if you're just starting now, because there's already 48 in our back catalogue. So enjoy listening along if you haven't listened to any so far. I thought now would also be a great time for me to share with you some of our most popular episodes. So if you're looking to just skip along and find the ones that are relevant to you at the moment of your planning, which you're welcome to do, of course, these are some that we have found our listeners are most our most listened episodes anyway. So season 2, episode 2, we had an episode called Planning Your Wedding Day Timings. This episode covered all the parts of your day and how long each part should take. So if you've never been married before, you're going to be finding you're constantly working out timings in your head and trying to figure out how much you need for certain parts of the day and what you need for other parts. So in this episode, we went over everything from how long you should give yourself to get ready in the morning, how long your ceremony will take, depending on what type of ceremony you're having. We spoke about how much time you'd need for your photos and your group photos, how much time your dinner should take, what to do with that little kind of lull time between dinner and the first dance and dancing. We went over everything in this episode, and had so much feedback from it, from people saying they found it really, really helpful, and it also helped them to think about the kind of downtime in their wedding day and how they could do something a bit more exciting for their guests, or keep their guests involved, or give them activities, or plan other fun things around their day where they knew there was a bit of time to spare. So if you're worrying about if you're worrying about your timings on the day and everything, then please head over there and listen to that episode. We think you'll find it really, really helpful, and as I say, it's one of our most popular, so you are not alone with needing help with that. In season 4, this season, and episode 3, we have had so much response about our planning your group photos episode. So this is my very first solo show. I was quite nervous because it was obviously my first show without Katie. So I decided to talk about something that I knew quite well, and that was group photos. Everyone worries about who they need to have in these shots, and sometimes I find that some people come to me with a list of like 20-30 groups, and it's just ridiculous because it's going to take so much time, and you and your guests are going to get so bored. So in this episode I went over the kind of usual group combinations that I tend to do on a wedding day. I gave some advice for those of you who've got divorced families, and I also gave some advice about how you can plan out the order of your groups to make them more efficient, so you're just adding people in and taking people out, and then also how many groups you should have, and how long each group shot will take. So that allows you again to fit that into your wedding day timings and make sure that you're not standing around bored smiling, or your cheeks will hurt from standing there smiling for so long. So go ahead and listen to that episode if you're at that stage and you're thinking about who should be in your group photos. And as with any of these episodes, if you've got any questions, do hop into our Facebook group. We're always willing to answer any questions outside of anything that perhaps we didn't cover. In season 3, episode 3, one of our most popular episodes was your blank canvas wedding checklist. And as I said, that's season 3, episode 3. This episode basically was going over everything you need to get in place if you decide to have a blank canvas wedding. A blank canvas wedding is one of those weddings that isn't happening at a venue, isn't happening at a traditional wedding venue. So perhaps you're just having a marquee in a field, perhaps you're using the village hall, perhaps you're using a barn, but they don't generally do weddings, so you need to provide everything yourself. Maybe you're not even having a church ceremony or a civil ceremony, you're having a blessing in the woods. If you're planning that type of wedding, which is the kind of weddings that Katie and I both had, we went over everything that we had to get into place to make the wedding day happen. There's so much to think about if you're planning this kind of type of wedding. And although they are actually really, really lovely and personal and really unique to you as a couple, there is so much work involved. Now, I wouldn't ever swap what I did on my wedding day, but it was stressful getting all the bits and pieces together. We had to hire in everything from obviously the marquee, toilets, generators, you don't think about these sorts of things, lighting, and then there's all your crockery, cutlery, glass hire. We provided all the alcohol for the bar, so it was working out alcohol quantities and everything. It's very stressful, but we thought we put that episode together because if we were both going through that type of wedding, there's definitely loads of you out there who are doing it as well. So if you're planning on a blank canvas wedding or a wedding from scratch, a dry hire is another word for it, then that episode is one you're definitely going to want to listen to, and we shared so much advice in that one, and we think it's probably one of our best, so do go ahead and listen to that one as well. Next up is planning for bad weather, and that was in season 2, episode 6. So we all are planning a wedding, obviously, and you can't guarantee what the weather is going to do, especially if you're in the UK. We have the most unpredictable weather going. Even in the summer, we can have a really, really rainy day. So no matter what you're planning, chances are you're probably in the back of your mind worrying about what the weather's going to do. In this episode, we went over all the things you should put in place for a wedding kind of plan B. Although I didn't give the best advice because I didn't have a plan B for my wedding, so if it had rained it would have been awful, but luckily it didn't, and it was actually a really lovely day. But we spoke about things you might want to have on hand to prepare yourself in case it is a rainy day, and spoke about how to really utilise the weather and embrace it rather than worry about it and stress about it, because at the end of the day you're still going to get married no matter what the weather. It's just that the weather is going to have an impact on your day, whether it's hot and sunny or really rainy. So do go have a listen to that one if you're worrying about the weather. I'm sure all of you are, and that will put your mind at ease. And actually, it might actually want you to make you want it to rain, because we had some really great ideas to what you can do to really benefit from the weather. And then lastly, one of our most popular episodes is in this season, so season 4, episode 8, and that episode was the wedding diet. Now, I was really unsure about doing an episode about dieting, because obviously there's so much pressure put on you anyway when you're planning a wedding. To then throw in, oh, you need to be losing weight for your wedding, is just an awful thing to put yourself under. So I would never ever advocate that you need to be losing weight for your wedding, but everyone seems to think that when they get engaged, that is the perfect, most ideal time for them to start making these amazing lifestyle choices, which is all great. If that's what you want to do, then go ahead and do it, but don't feel pressurized or like you have to because you are about to be a bride or a groom. Men feel the same pressures too. So in the wedding diet, I had a guest on with me. Her name was Kerrie, and she is part of fitterfood.com. Well, it might be .co.uk, but Fitter Food. She basically was talking to us all about how to lose weight healthily, and rather than crash dieting and doing silly fad diets, which will cause more impact and more harm on your body in the long run, just for the short-term gain. So if you are thinking about dieting, then I would really, really advise you go over and listen to that episode, because not only is it full of really great advice, it's quite realistic and practical, and we would never ever want you to embark on a dangerous lifestyle choice. So make sure you're educated before you decide to make any big changes to your life. And that episode's proved really, really popular. Like I say, I was worried about doing one about dieting, but actually having Kerrie on was probably the best option for that episode, because she is incredibly knowledgeable about nutrition and fitness, and she had some really sensible advice. So go and listen to that one if that's something that's on your mind. So that's 5 of our most popular episodes since we started. Don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. So we'll always be in your latest podcast if you're listening along. But now let me get back to those among you who are newly engaged. Congratulations all over again. Although this is such a fun and exciting time, how many of you are already batting away all the awkward questions? I bet you've even been asked, even if you've only been engaged a day, you've already been asked when the wedding will be taking place, where it will be taking place, and what type of wedding it will be. I think people ask these questions without thinking. We got it as well on Christmas Day. People are like, oh, when's it going to be? And we were like, oh, I don't know. We've literally just decided, got engaged. So chances are you haven't even had time to discuss those questions with each other yet, let alone make any solid plans. So don't worry, use the line, we're just going to enjoy the engagement for a while before we make any plans, to keep things at bay. And just enjoy the engagement. That's exactly what you should be doing right now. Please don't get swept away into a wedding planning frenzy right now. Just revel in it, enjoy the fact that you just got engaged, and maybe just daydream a bit about what it is that you want to do, but don't set anything in stone. I guarantee that you've probably already started to Google venues and probably dresses immediately, which is completely natural. Enjoy that time, get carried away, but don't worry too much about getting anything set in stone. I thought I'd just share a few ideas with you of what you can maybe embark on and get in place now, so that you can kind of deal with the engagement and the questions and get the ball rolling with wedding planning without putting anything set in stone right away. So first of all, you might want to get your story straight. So you're going to keep getting asked the question, oh, how did it happen, over and over again in the next few days. So you might want to kind of get a story straight. So maybe a short version of your proposal story and a longer version as well. So you're probably going to get, although this is an amazing time, you're probably going to get bored of telling the story, because you're going to be telling it so many times. So get yourself a nice short, concise story, get yourself a longer version for when you want to elaborate slightly. But just get that story straight so that you've got that ready to go when people are going to ask you. You're going to get asked over and over again, when is the wedding? So you might want to set a rough date just to answer the question, even if that's not when you're going to get married. So for us, for example, we were like, when we got engaged in 2015, so it was Christmas Day 2015, we said, it'll probably be 2017. And then that was that. And that just kind of ended the question for a moment, because we hadn't had a chance to think about it. As I mentioned, I'm a wedding photographer, so my next year, 2016, was already booked up pretty solid with wedding bookings, so there's no way I could squeeze in my own wedding. So we had no option but to do it in 2017. But as for the time of year and where it would take place, for example, we had no idea. So we just said 2017, and that was enough to just kind of let people kind of have that answer, and they were happy with that. So you might just want to think about a rough time of year, even if it's like next autumn, 2020, whatever. Just something so that you can kind of put people off once they've asked you the question. Next, you should just talk to each other about what's most important to you. So don't worry about putting any solid plans in place or booking a venue or doing anything crazy right now. Think about the things that are important to you on a wedding day. For example, perhaps you don't want to get married in church, or perhaps you do want to get married in church. That's probably one of the most important parts of the day to think about. Whether you want a religious ceremony or whether you don't, perhaps you just want like a woodland blessing, perhaps you're happy with just a registry office. These are the things you need to talk to each other about and find out what your wedding style is. One of you might want to get married in a castle, one of you might just want a marquee in a field, you might want a teepee, you might want a yurt, you might want a barn. There are so many options. So just talk to each other about what's important. Perhaps the live music's the most important part of the day, and the party with your friends. Perhaps you're not worried about the kind of more traditional things. Just talking to each other about what you have enjoyed most about the weddings that you've been to as a guest and what you've not liked so much when you've been a guest is a really great place to start. Write down a list of pros and cons of things about weddings that you've been to, and then see what you arrive at and what things you're agreeing on and what things you think are going to be suitable for your wedding. So just get those ideas on paper and have a good, frank conversation about what it is that you're expecting from your wedding day. I would then make a Pinterest board. You've probably already made one, to be honest. But Pinterest boards are really great ways for you to just gather ideas before you've made any kind of set in stone plans. So this is where you can start gathering decor ideas, ideas for colours, themes, perhaps even dress ideas. Perhaps it's where you can save photos of certain venues that you like the look of. Just put it all on a Pinterest board, dump it on there, and then you'll start to see something come together as you start to pin more. So you might suddenly start to see more colours arriving, you might start to see more styles of dress that you keep pinning, and then you'll kind of naturally find your wedding style that way. And it's a nice way of just kind of feeling like you're doing some wedding planning without putting anything on paper and making it official. Because the problem with booking anything too far in advance is that you might go off the idea and it might not actually be what you want when it comes to the wedding day. It's so easy in the beginning stages to get so swept up in the idea of getting married, especially if you go to wedding fairs and you've got stuff being thrown at you from all areas. It's very easy to just book everything and think that you need everything, when actually when you strip it back and think about what's most important to you, a chocolate fountain probably wasn't what you really wanted on your wedding day, for example. So don't get too swept away in getting everything booked now, because you don't want your mind to change in a few weeks' time. And that's especially important with a venue. It's very easy to get swept away and think, right, we're going to book that. And then 6-7 months down the line, especially if you're having a longer engagement, you might be like, oh, I wish we hadn't booked a barn. I'd really like to get married in a manor house. And you know, there's kind of polar opposite weddings, so it's very easy to get swept away and for your wedding ideas to change. I'd also maybe invest in an app, a planner, or prepare a spreadsheet to organise your plans. I used an app called Wedding Happy, I think it was. I'll have to find it. I'll put it in the show notes for you, which you can find on our website. And that app basically helped me track all the money we were spending. We didn't necessarily set a budget as such, but we because it's almost impossible to set a budget when you've never had a wedding. You just don't know how much these things cost. But we were keeping track of everything that we were spending so that we had an idea of how much the wedding was going to cost us in the end. So I found an app really useful for that, just to kind of write all my suppliers' names, how much they were going to cost, how much the deposits were, for example, and when they needed to be paid. And that's a good way of tracking that. You might want a physical planner, so a physical wedding planner book. You might be given one of these as a gift. I also have one in the plans. So if you're looking to get a wedding planner, I should have one being released in the new year. So keep your eyes out. I will obviously be sharing more about it on the podcast. But this is just a physical book for you to write your ideas in, stick ideas in. I'm more of a pen and paper type person when it comes to planning things like this. So I like to write things down. I love lists. I like to highlight things and put stickers on things and make things look pretty. So a wedding planner was a really good way for me to plan my wedding day. That's a great way for you to kind of write down your guest list and have everything in one book together. For the more kind of for those among you who are a bit more into numbers and charts and things, you might want to put a spreadsheet together. My husband Russell was the spreadsheet man. He loved kind of putting things into order because he deals with Excel at work every day anyway. So for him, that was the most logical way of planning the wedding. So you might want to find a way that you're going to keep on track of your plans, either through an app, a planner, or a spreadsheet, or any other way that you think is going to be useful for you to keep in track of everything that's going on. And lastly, just don't forget to just daydream. Right now, you are in the very most exciting part of being engaged, and it's just before you've booked anything. You're on the cusp of the excitement of the wedding planning journey, but don't get carried away. Just enjoy the fact that you're engaged. Daydream about what your day could be, and just don't worry about having anything too set in stone. I've probably said that a million times, but I just think that this time right now is a really great time for you to just enjoy being together, spend some time together, talk about the wedding, get excited about the wedding, but don't worry about putting any plans in place right now. Just pop that champagne, enjoy yourself, and really, really celebrate the fact that you have just got engaged. Congratulations once again. I really, really hope you're going to be joining us along the way with Get Wed. We are here to help you in your wedding planning journey. And if you ever have any questions or ideas for topics that we haven't covered, then please feel free to get in touch, because we love hearing from our listeners and we are here to help you. So now that Katie and I are both married, we are even more focused on helping you through your wedding plans. So get in touch, join our Facebook group, join our mailing list, and we look forward to coming back to you with season 5 of Get Wed in the new year. But for now, head back and listen to our back catalogue, enjoy it, and we will see you in the new year. Bye! Thanks for listening. We really hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Get Wed. Don't forget you can always subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, and while you're there you may as well leave us a review. You can join us for more wedding chat in our Facebook group if you just can't wait until next week. You'll find all the links that you need via our website, including show notes for this episode, over at getwedpodcast.co.uk. We'll see you next time. Happy planning!